earlier, guys. I was trying to get this one, and now we are doing things and stuff. All right. So since you guys just missed out on 8 minutes of content, I'm going to start over. This is my buddy Bobby Kady. For those of you not familiar, he is the former host and still probably host of the Fantasy Football Podcast. Cast. Bobby's got a little bit of a coaching background. He coached some high school football. He breaks down film. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about kind of what you do during the day, but I know he does a lot of film work, specifically college stuff. And Bobby is in about 430,816 fantasy leagues. Leagues? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I toned it down this year. I was in like 200,000, 300.
Just 200,000 leagues now?
Something like that. No.
So we are here to answer any fantasy football questions that you guys have. I am happy to have Bobby here, and it is a great honor to see what we can do here. So let's get back into it. So for those of you that missed it because I apparently don't know how to work technology, we are talking top 20 players that are either going too early, that are league winners and losers. Bobby touched on earlier that he has been a big fan of the Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes stack. Now that you got practice doing it, will you touch on that one more time on kind of what we've been looking at?
Yeah, how many technical issues did we go through on my podcast? So yeah, this is
Not
only
many.
fair.
Hi, Shelly. Thank you.
No, we did it all the time. It was a nightmare.
Well, I know that it's working because I've got people that are live chatting with us now.
cool.
So now it's definitely working.
Two sports guys were trying to figure out tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying at the beginning of the one we thought we were running, league rules are important. You know, like the PPR aspect, half PPR. You know, it's going to change the value on guys. I'm not like, I said that we're seeing a return to like quarterbacks going a little bit higher, and I'm in that same category of thinking this year where it's like if I can get a Mahomes, Hurts, or Allen, and then the first few rounds. And especially if you're grabbing Kelce in that early pick, he's probably going around like best ball ADP. He's fluctuated between about like 5 and 8 throughout the year. And I don't think that's too early for him. I mean, it's a premium position. You touched on like how the next closest guy to him in points is probably 100 points behind him, and it's just such a he's a one of one. He's a unicorn. Can Mark Andrews put up similar numbers? Sure. Could T.J. Hawkinson, come close? Sure. But if Kelce stays,
I'm a big T.J. Hawkinson guy this year.
Yeah.
I love the numbers that he put up last year, and it looked like he became he was just an absolute touchdown machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that losing Dalvin Cook is only going to force him to be throwing a little bit more on these third and short situations. And guys like Kelce, Andrews, and Hawkinson that come off the line so quick, that draw linebackers that have to cover them in short route coverage and stuff like that, they're open on those short routes. And I think that with his big frame and body, those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, especially in PPR formats, I think he's a 120 catch guy this season possibly. And I think there is enough football to go around, because I think that the only reason that a team like the Vikings held a guy like Madison was because they know that he's formidable. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be a goal line bruiser? I don't know. I have a theory that they might sign a guy like Leonard Fournette as they're making a push, somebody that can just be a big goal line guy for them, get them to the short yardage stuff. But we'll see how it goes. But outside of that, Travis Kelce listed on Fantasy Pros as the number 4 overall selection right now, and I agree with you. I don't think, I see people like, oh my god, somebody drafted Kelce at 1, 2, 3, whatever. I just don't think it's that crazy if you're savvy enough to find the value this year, because I think there's some phenomenal late value. Mm-hmm. And just some guys that are really getting undersold and underdealt with this year. So go Hawks. Yeah, John, I can't say that I'm a big Hawks guy, so but we'll see what happens. Bucks fans here.
Like Hawkinson.
I think he just wrote Hawks like the animal. So
okay.
I'm thinking Seahawks, but could be T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Seahawks here, so we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's talk other guys. We looked at Justin Jefferson has been kind of the consensus number 1. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's crazy in a full point PPR scenario. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I have no problem if you're going Justin Jefferson. I get it. It's the most upside, most talented receiver in the league. I I don't necessarily know that the targets are going to go one way or the other because they lose on one side. They lose Adam Thielen. You lose a guy like Dalvin Cook even, and you figure those targets go up. But you kind of see an emergence of KJ Osborne late in the year. They drafted Jordan Addison, who I think
love Jordan Addison.
Yeah. And I'm not sure where his ADP was, but like a lot of these rookies to me, I think are overvalued in redrafts. Because
Sure.
I do a lot of dynasty football, so yeah, I get the love of the rookies, and if I'm really sold on one, like Bijan is different. Bijan's generational. He's gonna get 60-70% of the touches in that backfield.
Let's talk about Bijan for a second. So Fantasy Pros has him listed as the number 10 rated player right now.
And I see his 80. So you keep those on as the rankings. I'll keep this on as the ADP.
Right. Yeah. Perfect.
So it's going 9 on ADP.
Yeah.
And 10 expert consensus ranking. Once again, no problem with that.
No, I actually think it could be low. If you look at the last few rookies that have come out that were number one, or the number one running backs off the board in first round picks, they've all been top 5 producing fantasy players if they can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor being, Jonathan Taylor was the first running back in the second round that was taken, or first running back taken in the second round or whatever. But he's the last one that was like the highly touted prospect there. Mm-hmm. But your other guys have been like Adrian Peterson. Turned out that guy was pretty good.
Yeah. Saquon when he came out, I got him in the first round.
Saquon, and I think it's pretty telling when other NFL executives during the draft knew they couldn't give up the draft capital to go get a guy like that, but they were all salivating over his talent, hoping that he was a guy that was going to fall to him. So and so far in the preseason, without really giving him some wear and tear, I mean, he's looked every bit as the real deal.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you want to talk about a non-premium position in real NFL football is the running back position. You look at the market for running back. You're being taken 9th overall in the NFL draft. You're a special player at that position with what they've done to that position, how they devalue the position. You can slot him out. You can do. I mean, he is generational. He's different. And like rookies as running backs can come on right away and make an impact as far as production. Sometimes wide receivers, especially tight ends, usually take a few years. So Dalton Kincaid's a big question mark. But rookie running backs, especially because of the shorter shelf life too, they can come in and have an immediate impact, especially if they're capable in pass protection. What's going to determine a lot of these rookies is the quarterback going to get murdered if are they a liability in pass pro? So you're going to see some of these rookies, your home league drafts are coming up, right?
Yep.
And so what always happens in home league drafts, the hometown players get overdrafted so quickly. I had a guy pick Tom Brady in like the first round.
You mean Baker Mayfield's not going to be a top pick in our leagues?
I would wait on Baker. I would wait on Baker. Caleb Williams, Drake May. One of them would be nice. Anyways, good luck, Baker. I hope Baker has.
I hope he has a good season.
He has a resurgence, and we win the Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield. I think.
I'd probably go streaking.
The Blind Side of being a legit movie is more believable. So, prayers up. But at the same time, you're in your hometown leagues, wherever you're from, the hometown players are going to go a little bit quicker. And because like I would say to the people out there, like I'm from Tampa, so So Mike Evans, completely underlooked this year.
Yeah.
In fantasy.
And that's not a homer play either. That's just overall.
He's going to go higher than where he's going in ADP, but that's a great example of like a player you should go out and get.
I think you could make the same for Godwin as well.
Absolutely.
I think either one of those
switch off on him as far as like, and Godwin's ADP is a lot higher than Mike Evans is, but when I say a lot, you're probably talking about 5 to 10 positions higher.
They're both relatively close, but they're probably in the 40s range.
60s. They're probably.
Are they the 60s?
Yeah, Godwin's 66 and Mike Evans 78.
So that's crazy. So we're looking at between the 5th and 7th round, depending on where your drafts go. You're getting guys where Mike Evans 3 years ago, before Tom Brady, was a first round, early second round pick. Mm-hmm. And I don't think his production has really fallen a whole lot at all. Oh, no. He wins jump balls. The guy gets touchdowns. And there's no reason. And if you look at even when we had Jameis Winston, it's very possible that we're playing from behind a ton again this year.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't like to admit that as a Bucs fan, that's great for fantasy receivers with guys like Evans and Godwin that are playing for salary incentives, that are playing for contracts still. I mean, we have Evans locked in for a little bit, whatever the case may be. But he's shown that he's not a quitter on the field. He's going to keep giving you 100%, and that's why the Bucs just love him so much.
He's a great community guy too, and everybody says the smart thing to do is trade Mike Evans. We're not trading Mike Evans.
No,
he's the heartbeat of they want to make him retire a Buccaneer, but I will say that on the Mike Evans front, and we'll get back to the original topic, this is my biggest thing. I think the entire Bucs season, it's the past few seasons been let's go to the Super Bowl, let's go to the Super Bowl. This year we got one job, and it's to get Mike Evans over 1,000 yards, to be the first receiver that's ever done that. That is numero uno on the Bucs priority list this year, I guarantee you. So for me personally, and he's never been injured and missed a lot of time, that's going to happen if he stays healthy. They're going to make sure it's
no doubt about it.
And 78 ADP overall, that's a value. But back to the original point of in your hometown leagues, the two things that are going to go earlier: hometown guys and rookies.
Yep.
Everybody gets infatuated with the rookies and these mid-tier guys. I think guys like, Jordan Addison, are we overdrafting them? I mean, you look at he's not far away from Mike Evans. I don't think
I think they see him sliding in right there and being the Adam Thielen, running slant routes, being that just possession receiver guy.
He's very good.
And he's very good, but there is a learning curve for rookies, especially in the NFL. And when you do have three veterans, which I would say that Justin Jefferson is now a veteran, or veteran enough, and he's been in the same offense with the same quarterback, so he has that rapport. When you bring in a guy like Hawkinson, when you have a guy like KJ Osborne, who was on the team and was playing well last year, because we saw Adam Thielen, I mean, he lost a step. I mean, that's just what happened. He didn't hit 1,000 yards. He only had 60 or 65 catches. He wasn't scoring touchdowns, and KJ Osborne became the beneficiary of that. Kirk Cousins is out there to win football games. He doesn't give a shit who he's throwing the ball to. He doesn't care if it's your rookie and it's your time to shine. He's going to go to who he's comfortable with, and I think he did get comfortable with KJ Osborne. Now, this is where rookies get tricky, because are we having that same conversation week 10? Probably not. Yeah. But we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at it's kind of like the Treylon Burks effect. Do I think? I'm always buying the dip on these players.
Right.
It's like Treylon Burks is this year's Jordan Addison. You could look at him and say, hey, this guy's not just going to come in the league and necessarily dominate right away. Was he very good where he came from? I've always loved Jordan Addison as far as his tape is concerned. But it's a lot of expectation in that range there, where just a few spots above him, you're getting Deontay Johnson, who there's no way he doesn't score a touchdown again this year.
Right.
And he had 100 million catches last year.
Yeah.
So you're getting that PPR value on top of it regardless.
Right.
So as long as he scores 5 touchdowns, he's going to be a wide receiver too at worst this year for you.
Speaking of another guy that's in the top 20 rankings, but his ADP has started to fall because of a contract holdout. We're not talking Jonathan Taylor quite yet, but Josh Jacobs sitting at number 20. Are we buying the dip on Josh Jacobs? Because everything is pointing that he's going to play week 1. However, we saw with a guy named Le'Veon Bell, who we also thought, 5 or 6 years ago when he was over with Pittsburgh, who's now he's magically out of the league after missing an entire year, thinking that he was that guy.
I forgot he played for the Bucs.
Yeah, yes, he did. But, are we buying the dip on Josh Jacobs? Are we keeping him right where he's at, or are we trying to fade him altogether?
It's not enough of a dip for me. I'm going to kind of let guys draft Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
I like Josh Jacobs.
Because he was a league winner last year.
But I hate Vegas as a team this year in general when it comes to scoring points. I think Garoppolo is overvalued as far as a real NFL quarterback. I think he played in a system that suits very standard quarterbacks can thrive in.
Is he like the equivalent of what happened with Matt Flynn, where Matt Flynn had that great run and looked like the guy, and then got paid and just wasn't really.
He's never been healthy though, too.
Yeah.
And he's coming off of another surgery. They have a clause in his contract because they know it too, that they can get out of if need be. I mean, they're on the hook for $90 million over 2 years or something like that, 3 years. I don't see that scenario in Vegas being, good for fantasy football, especially just because to me Derek Carr is such a tier above Garoppolo.
I agree. I've always been a Derek Carr fan, and he has just always gotten such a bad rap. And I'm looking, I'm like, when he was a rookie, he played great with Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. And, Amari Cooper's still a good player, but then he
Turned
went
around
through
Darren Waller's career.
But yeah, and then he went through like just a carousel of weird offensive situations with not a ton of help around him.
And never a defense. They haven't had a defense.
No, and he's made a couple Pro Bowls. The guy shows that he gives a shit. He wants to be out there. The teams always seem to be fans of him. His teammates always seem to be fans of him. And I think this year in New Orleans, I think guys like Chris Olave are going to go bananas. Having a guy that can really get it down the field, that can truly manage a game like that. So I agree with you. I'm terrified to touch pretty much almost anything Raiders. I've been taking Meyer a little bit late for like a tight end flyer, especially in best ball. I've been taking him a ton. Just because I think he's got a lot of upside for like a rookie tight end
for the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if, like in keeper leagues and stuff like that, where if he comes out and he becomes a top 12, 10 tight end, he might be value later. But like outside of that, I'm really not touching a lot on that offense.
Yeah.
Another guy that I'm really interested to talk about that's sitting in the top 20 is Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler, with a career year last year, they bring in Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator who historically doesn't throw the ball to his running backs nearly as much as what Austin Eckler might be accustomed to. Do you think that having him at number 7 overall, I know that he was going 1-2 kind of with McCaffrey last year was there, and then maybe you could have made the argument where it was like Jefferson and Chase last year. Austin Eckler sitting at number 7 right now as the overall for Fantasy Pros. I personally am a little scared to take him in the first round. I think that he's gonna get his touches, but I think I'd rather have a guy like Chubb that I know is just really going to be the focal point of that offense, regardless of Deshaun Watson or not. Mostly because he's staying in the same offensive scheme, and Eckler's getting a little bit different, where he's going to be used as a different type of toy.
Yeah, I'm snake bitten on Austin Eckler because I kind of was in the mode of don't draft him last year because they brought in the year before they had given like Josh Kelly like way too many carries,
right?
And then they drafted Isaiah Spiller, who I thought was going to be a lot better, a lot quicker. So it just kind of not that I drafted Isaiah Spiller, I just was scared off of Eckler. And what did he do? He went out and because there was a question, who's going to be the goal line back?
Right.
And he was the goal line.
Turns out, little dude still squeezed between the tackles. Yeah. He had what, like 12 or 14 rushing touchdowns last year? And like 5 or 6 receivers. He had like 20 touchdowns
in the air. Like it's so I'm not going to sit here and say don't get Austin Eckler because I did that last year. And the dude, I think he likes fantasy football more than he likes real football because he talks about fantasy football all the time and sometimes leaks valuable team information on his podcast. But I do agree that I mean Chubb has not that Eckler doesn't, but I think Chubb should be in consideration for being the number 1 running back in this year's class. I think you could put him up there with McCaffrey from what he can do on the ground. He had over 1,500 yards rushing last year, and this is with Kareem Hunt still on the team.
Yeah.
This year, what is Jerome Ford going to take care of?
Kareem Hunt, I looked it up earlier because I was actually talking with one of my buddies earlier this morning who's a big Cleveland guy. Kareem Hunt had 124 carries last season, and he was only... Will you grab me one of those waters too, please? Yeah. And he only averaged 3.8 yards per carry. And he was, I like to stay hydrated here. He only averaged 3.8 yards a carry. He had 100. He played all 17 games last season. So we're talking that. Who do they have in there? Was it Jerome Ford is the number 2? I mean, we're just not scared as long as Nick Chubb, who is a absolute just breakout running back.
And probably we're the best in between the tackles running back in the NFL.
We're not scared of Hunt. We're not scared of Chubb losing touches. If anything, I think he might be a 350 touch guy this season, depending on how Deshaun Watson looks. Because I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Depending on how the Browns are, and I have a lot of skepticism about it.
Baker Mayfield took him to the playoffs. Deshaun Watson should be able to take him to the playoffs.
You think so, but like when you take a year off of football and everything that he went through and what he looked like at the end of last year. And historically, if you look over the games, how Deshaun Watson plays in cold weather games, which I think it's in Cleveland, you're going to get that back half of the season. I'm really curious to see how this Browns team is. Now, that doesn't exclude the fact that, like, on a Jacoby Brissett-led Browns team, Nick Chubb was still very good. So I don't worry about his production.
Phenomenal. If I'm making my top running back rankings for the top 20, McCaffrey, I think, just has to be number one because he is just such a PPR monster, and when he stays healthy, which he did pretty much all last season, there's no question that he is that guy. But more even half point PPR, I think that he's the guy. But I think you're right. I think Chubb goes number 2, and then I'm probably doing Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, and then I have Eckler like the number 5 running back personally. I think that you can make an argument that maybe he's ahead of Derrick Henry, but again, everybody's scared that Derrick Henry's going to slow down, but he hasn't really given us a ton of reason to believe that yet.
Every year, people
it's 2 years in a row now, and every year he's that guy.
Yeah. I mean, you can just lock him in every year for 15 touchdowns. Like
the only thing that changes on that is if Jonathan Taylor finally finds a situation that he's happy in, and then obviously there's going to be an upgrade there. But right now, who knows what's going to happen? He's got till the end of the weekend to determine where he wants to go.
Jonathan Taylor did not look good last year. We're all basing what Jonathan Taylor can be based on his rookie season. I mean, you add in a contract issue on top of it. I mean, where do you feel comfortable picking Jonathan Taylor? It would be a while for me, personally. A guy you mentioned that I'm not high on though, as I think you are with the way you ranked it out, is Tony Pollard. I just what ADP. I saw his ranking was like 12 or something on.
He's running back 6 on Fantasy Pros.
16 years.
But they've got him as the 13th overall fantasy player this year, according to standard scoring, half point PPR scoring. But who else is? I mean, is Deuce Vaughn coming in and taking those touches?
Deuce Vaughn.
I think he's a great player, but I mean, is Deuce Vaughn going to get 150 touches in that backfield? Because Ezekiel Elliott had over 2, and Pollard was really good last year with sharing the ball.
100% agree with you. And there's 2 things here to the story. It's like, did Tony Pollard play as well as he did because he didn't have to have 100% of the workload, number 1.
Right.
Number 2, when they ramped up his touches, he got injured at the end of last year. And I'm not saying that he can't have a great year. I'm not saying he couldn't finish as the running back 1 on the entire year. I'm saying if I'm taking percentage chances, there's probably 9 guys I got above him from a sense of like, I haven't seen you do it yet as the full guy. You're coming off of a really bad injury. And so for those 2 reasons, you dip a little bit in like where I'm going to rank you. And if somebody's going to pick Tony Pollard in the 1st or 2nd round, I'm not going to have any Tony Pollard shares. It's just the way it's going to be.
So let me ask you this. Here's a guy that I think is being undervalued that was a 1st round pick 2 years ago, pretty much consensus. And I think that towards the end of last year, he was nothing but just pure consistency. I'm looking at Najee Harris. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, what a bust last year." Was he? The dude had 10 touchdowns. He had over 1,000 rushing yards.
Started the year with the Liz Frank injury.
Yeah, he got at least 15 carries a game. Yeah. And he's in frickin' Pittsburgh where they still love to run the ball. Who, by the way, I want to touch on Kenny Pickett later because I love Kenny Pickett this year as like especially in best ball. Yeah. I think that he is a potential best ball QB2 league winner kind of guy. I just think that he looks so much more comfortable this year. But we'll get to him later. Yeah. But especially in 2 QB leagues, I think that he's a phenomenal like late pick 2nd QB guy if you're in a 2 QB league. By the way. We're here for, I've got a couple of new people that are tuning in. We're here with Bobby Kady. He's the former host of the Fantasy Football Podcast. Bobby's got a good background in football, and him and I have been in some competitive fantasy football leagues. We're in a dynasty league together where he has a overwhelming command of talent on his team because he spent the first 2 seasons basically wheeling and dealing and making phenomenal trades that loaded him on draft picks, and he now has me by the balls, as some might say. But I'm not giving up hope yet. You know what? Let's hit our first question real quick. So we've got somebody here that says, "Can I get your feedback on my 12-team PPR team?" Their team's looking like this: Burrow, Bijan, Jacobs, Gibbs. Looks like they've got Samaje Perine, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Drake London, Hollywood Brown, Jahan Dotson, Dobbs, and Dalton Kincaid. What are you? What are your 12 team PPR? I'm sadly was so optimistic on Hollywood Brown because he was getting undrafted, but I saw a report earlier this morning that it looks like Kyler Murray just might not play this season.
Which is funny because it's like that's why I don't have any best ball shit.
Yeah,
I got friends that really like Kyler Murray late because of the value and stuff like that, and I'm like, if you're the Cardinals, why would you play Kyler Murray? In fact, you might trade Kyler Murray. You're gonna have the number 1 pick overall, and I don't know.
So it looks like I think that I think you have a stronghold on running back there. I mean, I love your
12 team.
12 team.
That's
That's
phenomenal.
phenomenal.
I don't believe these people.
Yeah, well, but
let's
I
say
do. So
Bijan in round 1.
So Bijan probably went run. I imagine that Jacobs or Gibbs was 2-3, probably Burrow 4, is what I would imagine.
What name his wide receivers?
DJ Moore, Drake London, Hollywood Brown, Jahan Dotson. So you probably got Jake.
Technically, you could get those guys late, but
You probably got
DJ
Drake.
Moore is undervalued in my opinion.
Super undervalued.
It's a real team. It's very good. You're very good. I mean, your running back core is strong, and your wide receiver.
He's got Pat Fryermuth and Dalton Kincaid. So
yeah,
I think that is a very, very well balanced team. I think
not that I don't believe you, sir, about your team that you drafted. It's just that is a very good team.
No, I think that is a significantly well balanced team there. I think that your only real curveballs that you have is Samaje Perine really going to be anything worth holding? I think he's probably the first guy you're going to drop on your team if you've got an injury. Mm-hmm. I think that Gibbs has shown that he is a athletic freak, but how is he going to compete for touches, and what is that offense going to look like with him, and how's he going to do in full speed? And people all season have been harping David Montgomery. So that's going to be a split backfield. But assuming that
but he could be similar to like how Kamara was with Mark Ingram. Those were 2 viable players together. You had Chubb and Hunt, both could be viable. Or some weeks where I started both of them.
Yeah, we got one more feedback on my 10-team PPR. Herbert, Mixon, Madison, Jettis, Amon-Ra, Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, and Scary Terry. Scary Terry should be a little scary right now because he picked up the old toe injury. And I saw that it was 6 to 8 weeks is probably what he's
going to be out.
He's looking
6 to 8 weeks
for Scary Terry.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jeudy is out right now also with some hamstring issues, which is funny because Mims I've been picking up in a lot of best ball super late talking about rookies and stuff like that. After they lost Patrick as well, he is the number 2, number 3 guy on that offense, and now definitely going to be the number 2. And as an upside rookie, that's going to be really interesting to see. Oh, he's also got Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson on the bench. Yeah, I mean, it's another team that's, Amon-Ra St. Brown is phenomenal, but I'd really go look at, I think you really might want to go look at another wide receiver or possibly trying to move a guy like Jeudy for somebody right now. You don't want to start the season off with guys that are
going to want Jeudy though.
No, but I don't know what you can do. Or if you guys have if it's me, if you've got a injury reserve spot, you move Jeudy to the reserve or McLaurin, whoever's got the longest one. Go get yourself Mims. I think that he's going to be the perfect fill-in for that offense because I think they really are all in on Russell Wilson, and he's got to have a show-me season right now. Otherwise, it is going to be one of the all-time worst trades ever in the history of football.
Yeah.
So go get yourself Mims, though. Hopefully McLaurin's injury is not going to be as serious as they say, because I've always just loved Terry McLaurin. He's another guy like Najee Harris, who I just feel like just kind of gets disrespected and forgotten about. And they're like, oh, well, it's a quarterback thing. It's like, okay, well, who's really been a show-out quarterback for the Redskins? I mean, Hal put up 20 fantasy points in his start towards the end of the season with the exact same offense that he has right now. So
it's
and guys, keep throwing your questions in there. Bobby and I are going to kind of periodically reach over and hit them, but we're also going to get through some of our content. So in little breaks here and there, we will get to all of your start sit, which is a little early for that, but a lot of your fantasy analysis and how your teams are looking. Or if you have any keeper questions, I am in a keeper conundrum right now where I'm not sure what I want to do. I was pretty convinced that I was going to keep Jalen Waddle in the 4th round, and now he's battling an abdomen injury where they're not sure if he's going to start the season now. And it's like, oh, if I've got a guy going into the season already not healthy or already potentially playing kind of injured, is that really who I want my keeper? Because those injuries, as you know, in the NFL, they tend to linger the whole season if you're not going in healthy.
Yeah.
So my options are, and I think I texted you about it and you gave me your feedback, but we'll give it to the listeners. I could keep CeeDee Lamb in the second. I could keep Mark Andrews in the third. Jalen Waddle in the fourth. I could keep Brandon Ayuk in the ninth. Garrett Wilson in the 10th. That's the only one that I'm 100% certain on. That's a absolute lock. AJ Dillon in the 12th and Christian Watson in the 16th.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't high on Christian Watson as far as like what his ADP is this year in drafts, but you're talking about the 16th round.
16th round.
You can get a lot of value.
The only thing is, and I had this conversation again, is if I keep a guy like Christian Watson, am I keeping him as just a really, really good backup flex? Or am I starting him? Because I know that I'm starting CeeDee Lamb if I keep him.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm starting Mark Andrews if I keep him. I obviously know I'm starting Garrett Wilson, and I'm definitely starting Brandon Ayuk for the most part because I really like Brandon Ayuk this season, and I've liked him the last 2 years. I think he's just another guy that's kind of under the radar, consistent, and I keep saying it, but I think he's due to really break out in a good offense, and this offense is set up with Christian McCaffrey there. I think he had a really, really good season last year.
Yeah, and I think those leagues are interesting because you're always talking about what's the value like in these first couple rounds going to be like, especially if you're giving up one of your picks. For me, it would be probably Wilson, Andrews, and Waddle.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I want to see how I have until Sunday to make that determination.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see what these reports are because
Does it get posted like what rounds?
Yeah, so
like where people.
Yep, yeah.
stand?
So we get the entire thing. So I'll have a first and second. I can always go back and just redraft CeeDee Lamb if he falls to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I think there's so much value late at running back, and I did the same thing last year where I got Josh Jacobs last year in one of my leagues in the seventh round, and he ended up being my league winner. He was RB2.
Yeah.
For the entire season, and really RB1 for the most part, until Christian McCaffrey really started hitting those flashes. I mean, it was just this is just another year where if you go get yourself if you're stuck with a David Montgomery, Travis Etienne 1-2 combo and you're loaded on receiver in PPR leagues, I just don't think it matters. I think it's good enough.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some middle rounds. There's some other guys that you really like at the and getting undervalued in those first 20 picks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I love. Garrett Wilson, I think they have him 19th overall. I think you could make an argument if you're in the late first, early second that he goes there. I think he's a lock top 10 guy, if not a number one target guy. Aaron Rodgers has shown with a guy like Devontae Adams that he loves him a true number one receiver. And Garrett Wilson with Mike White and Zach Wilson throwing to him last year was that guy. So he easily gets the biggest upgrade of anybody for the entire season. Yeah. So I mean, I love him over Devontae Adams. You know, I think Devontae Adams is still talented enough, but again, we talked about the Raiders and stuff, and he already sounds like he's unhappy demanding trade. I mean, what kind of effort are you really getting out of that guy? Is he going to save his body to go play at a contender, or is he going to give it his all? I mean, I don't know. They kind of screwed him by moving Derek Carr, which was the whole reason that he went to the Raiders to start with.
Derek Carr.
You know, I mean, or
Josh Jacobs still hasn't shown up.
Yeah, I mean, that was
going really well for them.
Yeah, they did a good job. Everybody's real happy over there in Vegas. So Sin City,
about emails, huh?
Yeah, Sin City more about like Sin GM. So we'll see what happens. So looking at some of these middle rounds, there are guys that stick out. The 20 to 40, we'll say 20 to 50 range.
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on something like overall, like these rankings. It's like these are great players in the first couple rounds. It's like if you want to, you could sit here and I can make an argument about why any guy is good or undervalued or overvalued. But like you're not gonna go wrong if you pick any of these top tier guys if we're talking top 20. I really see an argument for all of them. I mean, like I said, am I gonna have some a lot more shares of other guys versus some of these other guys? Like, of course. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I do too. I think,
but I don't necessarily know that. I was getting him in like the 9th round last year.
Can I tell you the worst decline trade I ever made so far?
What's that?
Cam Bertrand offered me Amon-Ra St. Brown for Rashid Bateman straight up last year, and I declined it like a clown.
I got made fun of because I was like, I'll trade you George Kittle for Amon-Ra straight up.
Yeah.
And he was like, done. Like, he was like, couldn't smash except soon enough. And I was like, and Kittle's great, but like, Amon-Ra, like, he really came on.
And I don't know if he thought like Williams was just going to come out and just absolutely dominate the shares from that, but he doesn't even see the field, so we don't know if he's any good or not still.
Yeah. Probably because he's watching your YouTube stream too much.
What's that?
He's watching the wager right
Yeah.
Bet.
Yeah.
No, I feel like Amon-Ra's, it's all about value to me. So it's like, do I want to stick with my strategy of getting a really good QB earlier, or am I going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown on my team? So I'm probably, I'd probably pivot to like a Mahomes or a Hurts.
Right. One more quick question since we're still in the top 20. Jake says, hey guys, I'm in a hybrid PPR league, half running back and half for running back and for tight end, standard for wide receiver. Assuming that CMC, Chase, Eckler, and Jefferson are off the board, who are you aiming for with your 5th pick?
5th overall, Kelsey.
I think it's got to be Kelsey, right? Even in half point, I think you get half point for tight end and running back. But I think that if you're losing, it's got to be either Kelsey or Tyreek Hill. But do you want to put all your eggs on Tua staying healthy? Is the thing. I mean, he had a phenomenal season last year, but I think that in that situation,
who are the ones that he said were going to be gone?
He said, assuming that Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Austin Eckler, and Jamar Chase are off the board.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's full point.
Tyreek Hill, I would consider.
Because it's the only upside is you get the full point for, it looks like, for wide receiver and half point for running back and tight end. So maybe
it's full point for a wide receiver.
Yeah, it's a hybrid PPR. They said.
Okay, interesting. Then I'd probably go Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, it's got Tyreek Hill. I mean, Cooper Kupp. Matt Stafford almost retired last season.
I think the Rams are going to be terrible, and I don't know that Cooper Kupp plays a full season.
That's my thing too. He's already struggling again with hamstring injury, and
those are lingerers.
That's it. So I think Tyreek Hill. I'd probably go Tyreek. I think Tyreek Hill, bud. That's probably your best bet there.
Yeah.
So
I don't mind Kelsey there either too. If you're gonna go for that stack that you can get on the back end.
Right.
Because you just look at your team every week. I was like, these teams that I had shares of Mahomes and Kelsey last year, it was just like, you're just at an advantage every week going up against teams. You're like, I can figure the rest out.
Yeah, like no matter
There's so
what.
many injuries that happen to the running back and wide receiver position that like to me, you can find a number one wide receiver on the waiver wire every week. You can find you're gonna have your Justin Jeffersons in there. You're gonna have your Jamar Chases in there week after week. But then you're gonna have like Isaiah Hodgins in there. That's gonna.
And we talked about this when we did our DFS stuff when we were on the pod. For those that aren't familiar, we would do our DraftKings every week, and we had our ultimate value. And I was talking with my buddy who everybody at DFS or at the Wager knows as DFS Mike. I was talking with DFS Mike, and he was like, "You guys hit on so many of those under 4,000 value plays for DFS." He goes, "It was bananas."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, but Bobby and I mean, people get so hell bent on like the pricing. Who cares if you have salary left over and stuff like that?
We would try to create the most, like, how much salary cap could we have left over at the end?
Yeah,
and literally play against each other. It would be like, in some weeks, it's like 42
yeah,
points.
I know.
But like, other weeks, it's like, they did better than my roster where I spent every dollar.
Yeah, and it just shows that like there's always value to be found. But I think you make a great point that like there is always value on the waiver wire if you're paying attention to matchups, and you really have to be paying attention to weather, to defense, and to offensive schemes. Like, are you in an offensive scheme where you can plug and play? And that's why I go back to like Marvin Mims. If you're missing out on Judy, you put him on. And I think that he's going to be a plug-play guy because they're just going to throw the ball.
Yeah, and we'll think about it from a DFS perspective because that puts me in a mindset of I like that, thinking about how DFS was last year and looking back, because that reminds me of what it's like setting a lineup for your week.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many weeks would you just be like, all right, is Travis Kelce in the 1 to 4 p.m. slate? Okay, he's in the lineup.
Right.
Let's figure the rest out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's just a difference maker. You are throwing a Hail Mary every single week if you pick one of these tight ends that isn't named Kelce, Andrews, Hawkinson,
maybe Kittle,
and maybe Kittle, maybe Kittle if he's healthy.
Right.
And Kittle can have his big boom weeks and come in useful for you, but another player that's like, I'm taking the strategy of QB and tight end the exact same way this year. Get one early or wait.
Yep.
Or just wait. Like,
Because
scoop up the value other places or wait.
at tight end, I was talking again. There are so many undrafted tight ends that I'm just gonna pull up. Like if we just pull up the tight end rankings, Tyler Conklin is a guy that you could put in there. He had 600 yards last year and 50 catches with Mike White and Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Turns out Aaron Rodgers also likes throwing to his tight ends in the red zone.
Yeah.
He's shown that he's got guys like Joe Michael Finley. He's always had what did he have? Even like Bubba Franks was there when Favre retired. He was throwing to Mercedes Lewis made a resurgence, and we didn't even realize he was playing.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I was like, "Did he have 3 touchdowns this week? Like, what happened?" So, these are all
We're
guys.
about to find out how good Robert Tunyon actually is.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Tonyan
Tunions of Funyuns. But there is so much value late, or guys that are worth flyers on. Your Dalton Kincaid's that is running more as a wide receiver now for the Bills as like wide receiver 3 than tight end. That's going to be interesting to see what they do in the red zone there.
It's funny that it's even the label tight end. Like, that he gets that because it's like, to me it's like, all right, how many times are you putting your hand in the ground? Let's see.
Right. But how about Juwan Johnson? Juwan Johnson is a freaking sleeper at tight end. You can probably get him if you're in a 10-person league.
What about Taysom Hill?
Yeah.
It's like you might play quarterback some plays, and he's gonna have those games where he has 2 rushing touchdowns and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm 100%.
If value doesn't fall to me, if I'm not getting an Andrews, Kelsey, or Hawk, I'm settling on Juwan Johnson, and I'm pretty happy about it because Derek Carr loves throwing to his tight end, and he had a pretty formidable season last year.
I'm done with the Kyle Pitts guessing games.
I can't do it. I can't do it, and I don't think the quarterback.
62 overall at that ADP. I mean, you're looking at guys where he's going. Let's see, 62. Let's look at
Kyle Pitts reminds me of Evan Ingram. He had a great first season, showed off his athleticism, and he's just not in the right situation to thrive, in my opinion. So with Evan Ingram now in Jacksonville, and I don't know how much it's going to change with Calvin Ridley being there and stuff. I don't know if it really changes a whole lot of his production, because I actually think it might help him long term. Yeah. But we'll see what a guy like Darren Waller can go do in pretty much the same offense over there now, if it's a talent thing or whatever the case may be. But Kyle Pitts, the guy showed that he's so athletic, but he's just not producing, and he obviously couldn't stay healthy.
Not at that range where you can get players like a Drake London, a Javonte Williams, Chris Godwin.
Yeah. There's too much value, and I think wide receiver and running back are too important in those middle rounds to just be reaching at these tight end spots just for the sake of saying I need a starting tight end, because I just don't think there's a big enough difference between a Pat Freiermuth and a Tyler Conklin or a Tyler Higbee or somebody like that. I just don't think you get, and I like Freiermuth, don't get me wrong, if he's sitting there in the 10th round and I need tight end, sure, I'm going to take him. But I just don't think the difference is big enough.
Where the difference,
where they're just they're not going to win.
Wide receiver is a lot different when you go from
I 100% agree. Sean's in the house. Sean, thanks for watching. He says he's got Jalen Hurts over here in a 3rd round pick. I think if you're getting Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round, that's phenomenal. Jalen Hurts is a league winner, and I think that if you can escape not taking a Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, and you're a middle 3rd guy, that is the time to target those 2 guys. I'm not reaching for them in the 2nd, but if you can get them in the 3rd, I'm taking them.
Yeah, I mean, you just opened yourself up for the possibility of, had you grabbed A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in the 1st and 2nd, you have the Eagles stack right there.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be...
It's going to be a hell of a bye week for you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. So let's get a little further. Some guys that are kind of these mid-tiers. We touched on Najee Harris. He's 26 overall. I don't know what his ADP is. Probably in the 30s, I would imagine. I don't know. He's probably...
Najee?
Yeah.
They have him ahead at 25. Actually.
Okay, so that's probably right about right.
Which I see him going later than that in basketball.
A guy that I think is, again, getting really... why are people so low on Joe Mixon?
That's a great question.
Why? Why? He's not hurt.
Yeah.
He's got no competition. He didn't really have any competition last year, and then they lost the only guy that was backing him up, Samaje Perine, who's getting drafted, I think, insanely high in some of these leagues too. Is like, you're not sure if he's a backup, a starter. Like, I don't know why he hasn't really shown me anything that says that he should be like your flex player. But why are people so low on Joe Mixon? I don't understand it. He's listed here as RB11, and I think Joe Mixon is the Josh Jacobs of this year, where he's going to be a league winner for somebody.
So Joe Mixon is like one of those players, from the time of starting best balls to up until now, you have seen go up the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think people view him as an older running back. I think the shit that he went through in the legal process, maybe even there being some speculation that he gets a suspension and not play a certain amount.
Right.
That his ADP is kind of like it's a fugazi. Like it's not really what it is, because we have seen it rise. Like I saw it rise. I think during that tier, is a reason why he might be dropping when you talk about the players that are around there. But I completely agree, because they have him here at 35, and I can tell you his ADP in the best balls I was doing was in the 40s.
And this is a perfect example where, like, again, if you're not getting Christian McCaffrey or Nick Chubb personally, you're telling me that I can wait till the late third, early fourth, and probably pick up Joe Mixon 50% of the time?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. I'm so happy with that. I can go back-to-back picks and sit and load up, especially with the majority of leagues being primarily PPR now. And you're telling me I can load up and get a Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones combo, or a Joe Mixon, ETN, or Joe Mixon, and roll the dice on like Jahmyr Gibbs, and then maybe go get one more person on the back end. Mm-hmm. But once I know that I've got my wide receivers pretty much settled in, or at least wide receiver 1 and 2, I can take those gambles, and those are how you win these leagues. I think it's so crazy.
And Joe Mixon can be a league winner. You're talking about a team that is on the field with the ball a lot of the time, and they're scoring points. They're a dynamic offense, and the more chances you get at scoring, closer you get to that goal line, those are big valuable points for running. Joe Mixon, felt like it was probably 3 games last year where it felt like he had 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards, and a few catches on top of it.
Question from Alan. I think this one for me is a no-brainer. Should he trade back from pick number 5 to 9 in the 10-man PPR, and he would receive the 5th pick in the 3rd round and lose his 8th pick?
And how many spots would he be going back?
He'd be moving back 4 spots.
Yeah.
I think that's a no-brainer, absolutely, because I think that if you're just tuning in here, bud, I think Bobby and I pretty much nailed it on the head. There's so much value in these first picks, but personally, I think that in that range, you're going to get Tyreek Hill, Nick Chubb, possibly Travis Kelce, depending on how it falls, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Pollard.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, because the value at the 3rd round, which is where we're talking right now, you're going to get 2 third-round picks, and now you can roll the dice on taking Mahomes in the 2nd round if you wanted to, because you're going to get similar value in that 3rd with back-to-back picks there. Or you can wait and try to grab your Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen. I think that's going to be a league-winning play for you, because the difference between a 3rd-round pick and having to lose your 8th round, your 8th round, you're almost borderline. That's like where you're seeing guys like Elijah Mitchell go as a handcuff pick for people that are drafting CMC just in case. I think the value is too huge. I think you absolutely have to you jump on that trade immediately if you're only moving 4 spots back.
So this would be a standard rule I would have for people too, is going into these drafts, like, make your own rankings, have your own tiers. And when you're ever considering these trades in the moment, you can do simple deduction. And you don't necessarily just have to say, oh yeah, do the trade, and take our advice for it. But see how much of a deal breaker it is for you. Look at your rankings and look at your 5th best player on your board, and then look at your 9th best player on the board, and ask yourself, is that a deal breaker for you? Is there too much of a difference between your favorite players from that mark to that mark to not do that trade? And then if you do your rankings deep enough, look at the guy you're going to get, number, I guess it would be his 9th pick. So you'd be getting him 39,
Yep.
I'm assuming?
Yeah, something like that.
Look at your 39th guy, and then look at the 85th guy.
Right, and
because he said 10 team, right?
Yeah, the talent is just astronomical. It's an astronomical talent.
I'm talking about the difference between Joe Mixon or
Yeah, you're looking at Joe Mixon,
Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley,
Devontae
Aaron
Smith,
Jones,
Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews, maybe
versus Hollywood Brown, AJ Dillon, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think is going to be a great rookie, but like it's a whole lot higher percentage shot you're taking with
Yeah. So looking at these mid tiers, because we're talking third, fourth, fifth round now. Who are some guys that stick out that you think are being undervalued that are going to be some league winners here? I've got a couple in mind, but I want to hear your take first.
Okay. Pause that thought real quick. I just want to go back to one other point on the thing too about one. I don't play 10-team leagues. I just think there's too many good players then at that point. As far as like you're just great players against great players.
Sure.
Week. So I like to find those diamonds in the rough.
I love 12 league. Yeah. I hate 10 league. If you're doing 10 man, I think you need to have 3 wide receivers, 2 flex positions. You need to just have an expanded roster because otherwise everybody's loaded.
But if you're doing the 10-team league, right, and you're talking about this trade,
right,
like, and there is great players everywhere, then you being able to get another third round player puts you at such an advantage.
Yeah.
Having you're getting the ninth pick, but you have a top tier player in those almost essentially back to back threes.
And what's awesome about that, injuries happen in football, right? If you do get an injury, your team is not dead. You're losing one piece of talent, but you sacrifice such minimal equity there that it doesn't matter. Because I look at who could go at 5, right? And it's like it could be Kelsey, could be Chubb, could be Diggs, Hill, whatever. And if you're telling me that I'm going to get stuck with CeeDee Lamb, Saquon, AJ Brown, Bijan Robinson, okay, let me get stuck. And you're telling me that I can go get Jonathan Taylor, maybe if you keep sliding, Jalen Waddle, if he stays healthy, my Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. You could go in the third round and get Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, and you've got the most consistent running back core if they stay healthy for the entire season. And I think that would be just a bananas combo, knowing that you're going to go wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, 1-2, and then you can secure your running back for the entire season that way. And they have different bye weeks. And you're just locked in on something like that. I think that's kudos to you if you're able to pull that trade off. So
yeah, I mean, and you're talking about the difference between last year, if you're picking around that area, people trade up for guys like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp doesn't end up playing half the year. Anything can happen. So you could be winning the pick at number 9 versus the number 5 pick too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the question?
So let's get into who are our league winners. I mean, this is really where value starts to come into play, right? So we're looking at our 3rd to 5th round guys. We're looking guys ranked between 35 and 60 that can really set you apart. So there's some guys that have. Let me just give you a couple players and touch on, right? So a guy like Breece Hall with Dalvin Cook coming in, his ADP has absolutely started to plummet. He was going in first round sometimes. Now he's going 5th, 6th round. But let's look at guys that we know can play phenomenal football when they're out on the field. I'm talking your Calvin Ridleys, DJ Moore, who last year I thought was going to be so much better, but this year I think that Justin Fields made some big strides in his game and his confidence, and they took the training wheels off of him, and he's shown just how freaking talented he really is. Your Christian Watsons, your Keenan Allens, that are another guy that people just are like, oh, he's such a boring pick. Yeah, and you know what boring gets you sometimes? To the freaking playoffs.
Yeah. Keenan Allen, it's also another player feels snake bitten by sometimes because the injuries that have come up throughout his career, and him and Mike Williams kind of similar. I always feel like Keenan Allen got a hamstring injury.
He's just a perpetual hamstring. I wonder if it's always the same hamstring or if he just rotates leg issues. Yeah, I've always wondered that, what his issues are. But Cam Akers is a guy that bad offense. Is he just gonna get a ton of volume this year if he can stay healthy?
I have no.
I don't either. But he's just dangle the carrot and let's see what happens. I like Jerry Jeudy, but I like him a lot less now that I know that he's going to miss a boatload of time. Drake London is another guy that it's he's shown some phenomenal athleticism. But guys that I really like that I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about, I really like George Pickens if I want to wait. Deontay Johnson, I think both of those guys, personally, I think the Steelers are going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. Tomlin always finds a way to get his team to be in a competitive position. And going towards the end of the season, if your team's competitive, it means your fantasy guys are going to be competitive. So, again, I watched some preseason, and again, I understand, take it for a grain of salt. It's preseason football. But the throws that Kenny Pickett is making now and the comfort that he looks like in the pocket versus last year where he had that deer in headlights look at certain times. He's getting the ball out faster and stuff like that. I just think that the stride is huge because nothing changed for him. Nothing changed. The game is only going to slow down now that he has experience. And he has the exact same targets. He has Najee Harris. He has Pickens. He has Johnson. He has his safety blanket with Pat Freiermuth. I think that the game slowly slowing down for a guy like that and being able to make his reads a little bit faster and in a tenacious set of defenses that they tend to go to have to face. I love the outside guys that he can throw to and for value for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, there's tons of value on that Steelers offense all the way around. And probably the guy I have the least shares of is going to be Kenny Pickett because it's one of those things where it's the same reason in dynasty leagues,
right?
That I didn't draft Bryce Young. Like, I love Bryce Young.
Sure.
I think he is a great football player, and I think he's gonna prove to people that his size is not gonna phase him from being a great quarterback. I love Kenny Pickett, the football player. I love the competitor. I like watching him play. But do I think they're great for fantasy? I can't say that I think he's going to be great for fantasy. Will he be consistent enough to be a number 2? Maybe. But, cheering for them in real football is one thing versus fantasy football. I don't know what, I don't have his stats on hand with me right now from last year. But you kind of think, you make good points about, and I think people are sleeping on the kid that they drafted last year, Calvin Austin, too.
Oh, yeah.
In that offense. I probably have more shares of that kid than anybody in Dynasty.
And I'm not saying let's go get Kenny Pickett as your quarterback. If you're in a 2 QB league, though, and you're waiting for your second QB, I think that's a guy that's just basically going relatively undrafted. But for me, when I'm looking at my second quarterback and I want to fill positions, I want a guy that I know is going to start all 17 games that they're playing. He's not going to lose his job. Nobody. They're not putting in Mitch Trubisky. They tried that last year and they're like, he's going to be a good backup for the rest of his year or for the rest of his career. And I think Jacoby Brissett's a better player than Mitch Trubisky is, and he's a guy that can maybe win you a game or two. But Kenny Pickett's not losing that job unless he just gets hurt.
I don't think he's losing the job either. It's a question of like how you draft too. It's like I wouldn't mind that if like you're it's a single QB league and you had Mahomes as your one,
right?
And you wanted 2 QBs. I don't have a problem with that. But like my problem is if I'm getting if I'm not getting one of the top tier quarterbacks,
yep.
I'm waiting. And what do? I usually wait till about the 9th, 10th round, and I get 2 QBs that are comparable.
Sure.
I'm getting guys that I like their upside on the year. So
you getting like your Kirk Cousins?
I'm getting your Kirk Cousins, your Aaron Rodgers, your Daniel Jones. I think Anthony Richardson is interesting as a flyer because, once again, I'm not sure he's going to be good at winning football games.
Right.
Like, I'm not sure I'm in love with the player from like he's off the charts athletic and talented, but
sure.
I'm not so much sure he's going to be very accurate or win them games, right?
Right. He might have a very Justin Fields rookie-like year where he's like, what are we doing with my hands?
For 2,000 yards, though.
Right.
And it's like, if most leagues are based on passing touchdowns being 4 and rushing touchdowns being 6, and if he gives me anywhere near 1,000 yards rushing and 6 to 10 rushing TDs,
yep.
I mean, he's quarterback 1.
Yep. And guys, for those of you that are just joining, I see a couple of new followers that are coming in. I'm here with Bobby Kady. We are here with The Wager. We're going to be touching, right now we're touching on your redraft leagues, and hopefully we'll be touching on DFS and stuff like that later through the year. But I do have Bobby Kady here with me. He is the host of the Fantasy Football Podcast, and also is in about 842,716 fantasy leagues. So at worst, he cries a lot if his picks are not right. So you might as well listen to him. So if you guys have any more fantasy questions, go ahead and drop them in. We're touching on the middle rounds of our redraft leagues right now. Who's winning your leagues and who's losing you? Who are guys that you think in these middle rounds are just being overhyped, or that is gonna they're just kind of vanilla. I mean, they're there.
Pre injury news, I was gonna say Jerry Jeudy to me.
Too much hype.
Yeah, as far as like just this belief that Sean Payton is gonna, turn around this team to a point where Jerry Jeudy is being drafted well before the likes of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Gotta throw. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably take Michael Pittman Jr. over him at this point. Drake London.
Yeah, I'm fading guys like Deebo Samuel. I'm fading like Ramondre Stevenson that are kind of going in these. I want to
Ramondre's another guy that I just haven't got on the train yet.
But I don't trust the Patriots running back.
Yeah.
I trust Ramondre Stevenson as the talented running back.
Yeah.
I do not trust him to be my RB1 or RB2
100%.
when I think I'd rather go get Aaron Jones, or I think I'd probably rather even have Miles Sanders, a guy that I just know is going to get the volume.
What Patriots running back has ever been?
They're not. They're not.
Maybe Sonny Michel for a season, maybe? The end of a playoff run or something
Falk.
like that?
It's just
Brandon Bolden.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not there. Hey Jerry, how are you, bud? It's just I don't trust
Not that
that.
Zeke even scares me off, to be honest with you. It's just more so that like the way that offense is run, the way they play games, the way it's like they're winning a lot of and playing a lot of close, tight, low scoring games. So where does the giant upside come in of a player?
It's the same thing that scares me with James Cook. Now, I drafted James Cook last year in our dynasty because I think long-term James Cook is going to be a very good running back. Mm-hmm. But when you bring in a guy like Harris, who is a freaking touchdown vulture, mm-hmm. the guy obviously can score from the 1 or 2 in, and they're not going to use the QB sneaks as much with Josh Allen, because I think that they realize that you can only do it so many times until bad things happen, which is why I think they brought in a guy like that.
Yeah.
I just think he's getting overdrafted for being running back 1. I think there's too much offense on that team, and game script just tells me that he's gonna be like Devin Singletary, where he's gonna get down to the red zone, and it's either gonna be Josh Allen or they're gonna bring Harris in, mm-hmm. and Harris is either gonna be a decoy because they have to respect him going up the middle, mm-hmm. which is gonna open it up for Kincaid, which is gonna open it up for Stephon Diggs getting one-on-ones and stuff like that. Or I just don't see a scenario where James Cook is that guy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you're hitting on the major point where it's. I like James Cook in the sense of like an explosive play, like he could just take one to the house
100%.
On one play. Whereas I think Ramondre is a great running back, but I don't know that he's got like that big play breakout ability from time to time. But like I think it's comparable in the sense of the offenses as far as. What is the ceiling on some of these guys?
Right.
Like when you have a Josh Allen on your team, the way the running game has been used and utilized in Buffalo, and how it's been used in New England, is it? Yeah, there's weeks where Devin Singletary was good or whatever, but
sure,
playing the guessing game every week, and the weeks that you're going to need those guys to show up. I mean, you're going to need Ramondre to be great every week if you're drafting him that high. I way prefer get a stud wide receiver like earlier than taking my chances that Ramondre even matches what he did last.
Well, and let's look at this too. I'm looking at running back rankings. They've got guys like Rashad White at running back 26. There's nobody else in Tampa that's going to take touches from him. Yeah. Who's it going to be? Chase Edmonds? Chase Edmonds had like 300 yards last year, and he was allegedly the running back too. Mm-hmm. We know that Keyshawn Vaughn sucks, and he can't. Yeah. I wanted him to be so good. I thought he was going to be good. He's just not that guy. So I mean,
I drafted him in almost the first round, maybe the first round, one of my dynasty leagues at the end of the first round.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like one of those things. It's like if I and James Cook and Rashad White sit running back 25 and 26, looking at fantasy pros. And I can only imagine that James Cook is rated slightly higher because he's on a significantly better offense. So they're going to move the ball, and there's going to be more scoring opportunities, but we don't have that crystal ball. And I think that White, who can catch balls out of the backfield, and Baker Mayfield is okay, and he'll target his running back and stuff like that. Yeah. I just think that is your better long-term play when you're looking for consistency, because all you're really looking for in your running back 2 or in your flex is we talked about ceiling. Who's going to be the most consistent for me that has upside? And I think that Rachaad White has upside to be running back 10 this year, where I don't think there's a scenario where James Cook becomes running back 10 in an offense that just has so many mouths to feed.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I'm not even a huge fan of Rachaad White, the running back, the runner. But I think
the situation.
Hopefully, he's gotten better at that and everything. But he has shown to be a freak athlete with the ball in his hands as far as what he can do after the catch. And I think that's where he's going to become very valuable in fantasy. And like you said, there's nobody behind him. I mean, there's a chance that Sean Tucker might be the 2 in Tampa. And that's an undrafted free agent to tell you what that situation looks like. So Rachaad White is going to be, quote unquote, the bell cow for Tampa Bay.
More cowbell?
And if you're telling me that a guy's going to get 300 touches and he's going 72 overall, it's like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And I think the value in that running back position this late, and some of the overall the positions, some of my favorite values from 60 to 90. It's like it's a lot of bucks too. It's Godwin, it's Rachaad White, it's Mike Evans. I love Alvin Kamara. I know you're missing him for the first 3 games.
Okay.
But he's so explosive of a player.
You're telling me that I can get a guy, Alvin Kamara, who has been a consensus first to early second round pick.
He was going to early 90s.
And look, I understand that he looked like he was off last year. But was it an Alvin Kamara issue, or was it a New Orleans Saints offense issue? I think it was a New Orleans Saints offense issue more than it was an Alvin Kamara, because Alvin Kamara was the only weapon you had to worry about. Mike Thomas is a shell of himself and barely played. Chris Olave showed that he was talented, but you were willing to let Chris Olave and Winston and Dalton have to beat you than you were to let Alvin Kamara get the ball in the open field and just absolutely destroy you. Because in a couple games where they weren't stacking the box eight deep and he wasn't being shadowed, he exploded. Yeah. He ran all over, and he had 2 back-to-back weeks, and then you saw that the box was stuffed again. It was like, well, that was a mistake. Yeah. Clearly, that was a lapse in defensive strategy, and the guy can still run the ball. So.
I watched one preseason catch of him this year, and it was like, yeah, I'm sold. Like, you guys still has it.
The guy pulls Jeeps for fun.
And what you can do too is, you in probably the next 2 rounds, you can go ahead and just draft Jamal Williams too. So whichever back you see, and you got him for the first few weeks, he's going to be the guy. I'm not as huge as everyone is on Kendrick Miller. I've been wrong before about guys and being better than they are, but like I'm just, there's a lot of buzz after they picked him early and camp and everything like that. He's a guy to me.
Take it with a grain of salt. He's a late flyer pick. If
Jamal Williams scored 20 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was out of control.
So if you pair him with Kamara, I think you got a nice little stack there. And
Ishan Patel, first, second, third rounds, 10-man PPR. Thinking QB and wide receiver. If you're going quarterback, if you missed us earlier, Bobby is a big proponent. If you're going to do that, get Kelsey first, go Mahomes second, and figure the rest out after that. That keeps you competitive every single week. Third round, I think that you can find a lot of running backs. Basically, take whoever's getting undervalued there. I like Joe Mixon in the third round if you're going to start that.
Love Joe Mixon.
Najee Harris. Yeah, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, I think are great. You know the floor that you're getting with a huge ceiling, a lot of upside there. You have the first pick though, and you want go get Justin Jefferson then. If it's a 10-man PPR, go get yourself Justin Jefferson, and I think you can wait on quarterback in a 10-man. I think you're going to be able to get
Kirk later on.
Yeah, exactly. You can get yourself Kirk Cousins super late if you want. I think that the first overall pick, you're going to want to stack your talent and get yourself at least one running back in the second and third round, because once that slips, you might feel like you're reaching. But the first pick is tough this year, I think. I hate having the first pick because I hate making that decision. And you get all your bros that just give you shit if you make the wrong pick all the time. You're like, you're an idiot. It's just like, what do I do with my hands when it comes back to me back to back and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Justin Jefferson, man, he's a league winner. He's a superior talent. He's been the consensus number one. I don't think you're wrong with that. You can go him, Chase, McCaffrey, in no particular order. I think you can make an argument for all three of them. So, is Hurts not a good pick at 110? I think if you get Hurts at 3-1, I think that's good. I don't think I want to take Hurts. Yeah, I mean you can go Hurts late if you're a believer in him. I mean we were just kind of talking about that.
He said he has the first pick overall. Is this a different person?
No. Same guy. So is Hurts not a good pick? But he meant at 210, not 110.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean that's okay. I think that's right where the values.
He'd be like, nope. You have to wait till 3-1.
No, yeah, I think that's about right where his value's at. If you wanted to,
and especially once again going back to the 10-team league, it's like if I'm in a 10-man league, I want all the advantages I can get. Being that there's so many rosters that are loaded, and doing that is positional. The
dominance.
Yeah, if you're getting a Jalen Hurts and he produces the way we expect him to,
right,
you have an edge on your league. At least this puts you at the same range as the guy that's got like Mahomes.
Yeah. If Eshawn, if you're a big Jalen Hurts guy, if it's me, I'm probably taking Justin Jefferson. And then on the way back, you're back to back. If I'm going to try to do a Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts stack. Yeah. And then I think that if you've listened to the rest of us, we've been talking about running backs that you can get late that you can really fill in, especially in a 10-man league. You're going to find value there. So I think that is the play if that's the route that you want to go. But good luck. So other guys, DeAndre Hopkins, I want to touch on real quick. Is he a shell of himself? Is he more of a gimmick? Is he? I mean,
he's DeAndre Hopkins.
He's DeAndre Hopkins, right?
He's great, but the question is going to be: is Ryan Tannehill going to be able to supplant his production in a way that is making him? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Brown was able to eat in an offense where they hardly threw the ball 25 times a game. So,
yeah, I feel like they would feed him end arounds and stuff like that.
Right.
But I think his value's fair, right where it's going. I mean, he's DeAndre Hopkins, so I think he's still an elite talent. He's getting up there in age, but I haven't seen anything that made me think he's taking a step back.
Looking kind of these mid tiers, Darren Waller is a guy that starts to pop up here. So we're starting to fall into that. When do we reach for a tight end? When do we not? I think that if you're sitting in the 6th, 7th round and you can find a guy like Darren Waller still sitting there and you're feeling really comfortable at your wide receiver position and maybe you waited at quarterback or something like that, I think this is probably the time that you can make a flyer pick on him. Again, Daniel Jones has shown two things. He's shown that he can absolutely excel with a tight end. Look at Evan Ingram's rookie season. And then he shows that he can completely ignore you and forget that you're even on the field.
Yeah.
So what their offense is going to look like with a guy like Waller, I think he's obviously a significantly better talent than what Evan Ingram was. But we've also seen Waller kind of fall asleep behind the wheel in an offense where he was the focal point as well with Derek Carr there. So take that with a grain of salt. Him and George Kittle are kind of falling right in that 70-ish range. I think like people are sleeping on Gabriel Davis. He got so much shit last year for underproducing, but he was still a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah,
he was overdrafted, but I mean he still produced, and I think people just built up too much hype.
That's what happened
in their own head. But I think this year now he's just absolutely undersold, sitting at overall player 79 according to Fantasy Pros.
You can buy the dip on him.
I think you could buy the dip there. What do you think about Javonte Williams over in Denver? He was a guy that was going first, second round last year, eats an injury, right? Very unfortunate. He's facing another injury right now where he might not even start the season. Or if he starts the season, he's going to be on a pitch count. Is this a guy that can win you a league later in the year because he's just being so undervalued, and once he starts really ramping up and shows that he can be healthy and get that 15, 20 touch game, is he a guy that we want to target later for our RB2 that has a ton of upside?
I completely think so. I mean, I'm pulling this up right now because I wanted to show you how much I love Javonte Williams. So
show me.
This is my best ball exposure, and we're talking about players. So this gives me a good indication of like where I
Right.
think value is, who I think is good. And yeah, I'm oftentimes going to play a best ball different than a regular league, like as far as like the players I want on the back end and stuff.
Right.
But it still gives me a good indication of who I like. And Javonte Williams, I have on 36% of my best ball teams, and I do a good amount of best ball.
I'm sorry, you said 36. Are you doing some DraftKings best ball this year?
36%. I did DraftKings best ball leagues, but yeah, Javonte Williams is a guy I think that's going completely under the radar. You want to talk about hype and the dip in hype and the roller coaster that you see these players on, like you were talking about Gabe Davis and how the hype was on him last year. Now it's waned because he's not the hot new thing anymore. Javonte Williams, coming out of college, was one of my favorite running backs to scout. His contact balance was elite. He proved that he could catch the ball. There was a split between him and Melvin Gordon. That was the concern when Javonte was a rookie, was what's the split like going to be between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams? Well, when they started giving him the ball, he was by far the better running back.
Oh, yeah.
And it showed very early. You're talking about an ACL injury, and just not the same injury that they used to be in the sense of how quickly you can recover, come back. And, they got him some game reps, and I think that was important because you want to get the guy out there and get him hit again, make sure, shake off the rust and get his confidence back. And so I have no fear in picking Javonte Williams, especially the value that you're getting him at.
I think he's this year's Josh Jacobs once he can show that he is completely healthy. I think once you get to week 4 or 5, when they're gonna probably get Jerry Jeudy back and have a full offense again, I think it sucks that they lost Tim Patrick because I actually really liked Tim Patrick. I thought he was gonna be really good this year. Yeah, and that was really heartbreaking to see him go down for the season.
The second year.
His career might be done with stuff like that, which is it's a heartbreak because you never really got a chance to see what the guy could do.
Yeah.
But
especially because no one ever talked about him, and he was just kept being the best wide receiver on that team.
I know, and that just sucks. But I think like guys like him, I think Elijah Moore can have a resurgence this year. I think that he's gonna be the number 2-3. I think people are sleeping a lot on guys like Elijah Moore and Donovan Peoples-Jones, who last year had like 80 catches and almost 1,000 yards on a poo-poo offense for passing. And it's just crazy.
It's completely the definition of a boring pick, you know?
It is, but if you're in one of these 3 wide receiver plus a flex spot, and you need somebody that you can just put in there and you need just 10 points, just get me a floor of 10 points, that's your guy. There is no question. He's going to get those targets. Like, those are the guys that you want. And these are the guys that you're getting late in your drafts that they're not losing you leagues, and they're probably helping you win leagues as long as they're not getting injured.
Yeah.
So I think the consistency is just so key, and stuff like that. Getting towards the later tiers where we're getting into like picks 100, we're talking in rounds 7 through 10. A lot of names that I see that pop up a lot. Sky Moore has just been a super popular pick. I'm not sold on him. I look at a guy like Mecole Hardman that basically had the exact same role that Sky Moore's walking into, and a couple games here and there, he caught a touchdown during the Super Bowl, but the reason that he caught a touchdown during the Super Bowl was I think nobody thought they were going to throw it to him. They were like, oh shit, that guy's on the field?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I see stuff like that, and I'm like, there's no reason. When him and like Kadarius Toney, I'd rather have 100 shares of Kadarius Toney because of the upside than a guy like Sky Moore, even though Kadarius Toney is always injured. But I look at like Rashad Bateman for a resurgence. He's already comfortable with Lamar Jackson. A lot of people are really high on Zay Flowers. I'm not an OBJ believer personally. I think he is what he is right now. I think that he's going to be a good receiver, but I don't think that his fantasy relevance is going to be a league winner personally.
I think that shows what a polarization the whole OBJ conversation is, because I feel a lot of people feel that way. I personally feel OBJ is the one in that offense, and I mean
over Mark Andrews?
Not over Mark Andrews. I won't say that. But like as far as that wide receiver room.
Okay.
And I honestly rather have Zay Flowers than Rashad Bateman.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm out on Rashad Bateman. Like to me, he hasn't proved. I was never a huge Rashad Bateman fan to begin with. I didn't see it like what everyone else. So, I mean, I'm not saying the dude's not talented. He's a wide receiver in the NFL. I'm just the separation that Zay Flowers can get. It makes him special. And OBJ is just if he can return to any sort of form that he had with the Rams, like when he was coming off that.
Yeah, he was looking good.
My fear in that room is not the wide receiver. I think any three of them could pop off any week, right? I think the big fear for me is Lamar Jackson. Is he enough of a quarterback to be to give those guys enough production week in and week out to depend on fantasy relevance? That's why it broke my heart that Zay Flowers went to Baltimore.
I think it's going to be the most interesting wide receiver trio to see what production can come, because there's so much potential, but nobody is sold when you look at the ADPs of all three of the receivers. Like, there's no question that the Ravens offense itself can be polarizing. Right. Like, they've got a number one tight end that is a true number one tight end. They have a insanely athletic, run and pass option quarterback. They have a formidable, if J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy, they have a strong running back game. Mm-hmm. And now you've got three super talented receivers that could be wide receiver one, depending on what situation they fall into. But nobody can really sell or pick which way they want to go. And I think that, like, in these late positions and rounds, I think you just got to pick one and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think.
But I want a share of one of them. I want to share one of them late.
I do, and I think the guy to have is OBJ, just based on, like, what I've seen him do before. What I will say is my one thing that gets me there, that allows me to draft these guys at a certain point, is Todd Monken and him being hired as their OC. I think that changes. It's going to completely change how the Ravens operate as far as an offense is concerned. So it's not going to be this 1950s read option type of game that they're playing. I think when you watch how Todd Monken runs his offense, it's built for production in fantasy points.
So let me ask you this then: bigger flyer play. So right now, Quentin Johnston, rookie going to the Chargers, right, is ahead of OBJ by about 15 spots for overall player analysis for Fantasy Pros. If you're coming into like the 9th or 10th round where you're ready to take your flyer pick, you don't want to get hawked on something, are you looking at a unproven rookie, or are you taking a veteran with a big upside offense? Because both have upside offenses.
Yeah, I'm probably taking OBJ in that scenario, or at least I'm picking another player and then waiting on OBJ.
Right.
If that's an option too.
Like, yeah.
Because if they're that much of a different, like, and like I said, in your home drafts is what's going to happen. Rookies are going to get overdrafted. So Quentin Johnston will get picked before OBJ in a lot of your drafts.
Right.
And that's why I'm not going to have a lot of Quentin Johnston. Not that I don't believe the guy isn't talented, but like, the film told me he had a lot of body catches, and so that concerns me from, the trust factor that you build with your quarterback if you're dropping balls. One of the highest percentages of drop balls in national football or in college football last year. Can he fix that? Yeah, he's super talented and he's super athletic. But you also have to remember you got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there, and like, whereas I think we're the polarizing topic about the Ravens and how that's going to run and who's the one, who's the two, who's the three in that offense. I don't think you really have that issue.
We know
There's a reason that Quentin Johnston is playing into the third quarter of preseason games.
Right.
He's still learning.
They're getting him reps, and
there's a reason Keenan Allen's not. There's a reason that Mike Williams is not.
Well, that's because Keenan Allen pulled his hamstring thinking about pulling his hamstring.
Yeah.
He didn't, but he probably thought about pulling his hamstring just in case.
Pulled his hamstring thinking about stretching.
Some other interesting late guys. I think I'm taking shots on Darnell Mooney again late.
I don't hate it.
I think that if I can get him in like the 10th to 12th round, that I'm looking for my wide receiver 4 or 5 just to store on my bench. A guy that I know I can cut if the first couple weeks are bad, but I think that can have a lot of upside because he's got DJ Moore there now, right? They are giving the green light to Justin Fields, and Chase Claypool gets to be the guy that runs all those streak routes if he can get his head out of his ass and actually wants to play football, versus thinking that he's wide receiver 1 on whatever team he goes to, which he is lucky if he's wide receiver 3. But I think Darnell Mooney is a guy that's just going to be on the field, and I do think the Bears' offense is just going to be a little bit better. And
It's got to be.
it can't get worse.
It's the same system.
And they have to throw the ball. And Darnell Mooney as a rookie showed that he looked like he could be that guy, right? Like, there's no tricks or gimmicks to it. He's a fast player. He's a big receiver. I think that he can be a big touchdown guy. So sitting at wide receiver 56 in the rankings, I mean, I see some big value there. I mean, I'm probably taking a flyer on him over Tyler Boyd, where you're taking Tyler Boyd only more for injury purposes of T. Higgins or like a Jamar Chase. Another guy that I think is kind of interesting, if you draft Garrett Wilson, knowing the connection that Aaron Rodgers previously might have had with Alan Lazard, are you drafting an Alan Lazard knowing that you're probably not starting both of them, but you have him as a handcuff, almost like you would draft Elijah Mitchell with CMC? Or are you only taking Alan Lazard if he kind of just falls to you and you need kind of a flex play in that scenario? Like, are you going out of your way to just get that handcuff, knowing that that's probably going to be a high passing offense?
No. Me personally, no. I mean, to me, I started playing redraft leagues a lot like I was just playing best ball last year. I started doing that, and I had a lot more success doing that. And by that I mean, like, why would I pick players like Tyler Boyd and not that it can't happen, but Tyler Boyd and Alan Lazard that are gonna get you 9 points every week, and they sneak into these fantasy ranges. But when do they have these week winning weeks? You know,
right?
When do
you
they
have to bank on an injury?
Yeah, and I get you want to balance your roster with enough boom bust players and high risk versus high reward players. But like, to me, just who you're getting in that range, there's no reason I'm picking Alan Lazard where he's being projected right now. I rather wait. I rather get, if there's some running backs in that area. You know, that's usually around the age range where I could also be getting my quarterbacks at that time. Or a backup quarterback, maybe even my first tight end in that range. And, you know, like I said, I'm usually waiting on quarterback and tight end if I don't get one early, or if I do get one early, I'm still waiting. But there's flyers that are really like, I think Adam Thielen has more upside than a lot of those.
Where his ADP is at, I think Adam Thielen has tons of upside.
No DJ Moore there in Carolina anymore. They bring in who's going to be the best friend of a rookie quarterback?
It's going to be a guy that can that's a guy that's willing to still go up the middle.
Yeah, and get open.
A guy that can get open.
And they clocked him at 20 miles per hour the other day in practice, so to me, he hasn't really lost a step. And he said, not even hyperbole, he said, this is honestly the best I've felt like coming into a season in like 13 years. He's like, this is like the healthiest I've been. So I'm excited to see, and remember, Thielen, you want to talk about guys that can win you weeks. He reached just like multiple touchdowns.
God, 2-3 years ago, he was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and he's still been steady with
Justin
Jefferson.
And an absolute PPR monster.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a PPR dream. He could get you 10 catches for 60 yards, and he's scoring you 16 points, and you're just like, did he even like have himself a game? I mean, what happened here?
I would say Adam Thielen's my fourth highest percentage on, which is at 46%.
Okay.
So Adam Thielen and
who's your highest owned player that you've got?
That's getting crazy. Isaiah Hodgins.
That's but you're getting him so late. I love it. I love it too.
Yeah.
I think that he showed those flashes on the Giants offense, and I 100% agree with you, because who's the number one receiver for the Giants?
I think it's it.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Who's the number one receiver for the
Slayton, Darren Waller, and Danny Bellinger?
Exactly. It's wide open. It's wide open. It's wide open.
They drafted Jalen Hyatt.
Okay.
You had the signing of Paris Campbell. But here's the big thing too. I don't care who they brought in. This is what I know, is that Brian Daboll took over that team,
right.
And when he did, he left Buffalo as their offensive coordinator. Isaiah Hodgins was on the practice squad at Buffalo to start last year at Daboll's first season. He scooped him up off the practice squad, put him on his roster, played the last 5 games of the season, I believe, was a wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Like, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's a young player that has tons of upside, and as you mentioned, a team lacking a true number 1 wide receiver.
I agree. I think that competition is wide open, and with Daniel Jones having a little bit of familiarity with that already, I think that it helps him be able to fall into it when you see that these teams just aren't giving these guys preseason reps like they used to. I think that is absolutely huge. I want to talk about towards these late spots. We're looking at rounds 12 through 16, where we're at the back end of our drafts. Kickers and defenses start to come up. Last couple picks, but
don't play with kickers.
Don't. Yeah, I agree too. Drop the kickers.
I don't even mind dropping the defense. But
No, I personally, we actually voted for that in my longest running league, where I've got this trophy right here that I did win. I'm also eligible for the Dynasty Pot this year if you win back to back, a couple $1,000. Hey, Mike McNamara, right there, bud. But I want to talk about this is where we were referring earlier, where you can just almost wait on tight end, and there's a bunch of guys in these ranges that I think you can draft and start almost immediately. Juwan Johnson is a guy that I like kind of right out the gate. And then what about Sam Laporta? So they get rid of TJ Hawkinson last year, who was putting up numbers in Detroit. You bring in a rookie, and you didn't bring him in to block. You brought him in to produce offense. I mean, do you think that that's worth, late pick, knowing that you're going to be able to cut him if he's not producing in the first couple weeks on a Lions offense that I think is actually going to be pretty decent?
Yeah, and where you can get him, I've definitely got more shares of Sam Laporta than I do Dalton Kincaid.
Agreed.
And that's not to say that Sam Laporta is going to be more productive than Dalton Kincaid, but there's a realm where he could, because you hit on it. Yeah, basically 2 days into training camp, they go, "Oh, he's our number 1 tight end."
Yeah,
like they knew immediately when
they not only drafted him knowing that he was gonna. I mean, first off, he was a high tight end draft pick.
It's really ironic that they traded Hawkinson, who was a Iowa Hawkeye.
Right.
And they drafted another Iowa Hawkeye. And apparently the knock on Hawkinson was that he wasn't tough, and he was just kind of like didn't give it his all in practice and stuff.
Turns out
Sam Laporta is a different story, and not that you can't be talented and be TJ Hawkinson still to do that, but like I think the way that the Lions are coming along, they're an exciting young team, and the thing about the Lions is they're not like the Lions of old with these like outside of Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnston,
they
pretty
have
boring
weapons. They are.
Yeah, Jared Goff is underrated.
I for DFS purposes, I always love to fire a stack lineup with the Lions with Jared Goff, because he's always
St. Brown. I mean, his value you just saw week after week after week. It's because it probably started at 5,000 for him in the DFS plays,
and they're explosive. And I think that being able to play on turf when you have just speed guys, what a advantage. What a advantage being able to play on turf like that.
And Laporta, unlike like Kincaid, is pretty much available in any scenario. So he's a great blocker, so he's going to be on your goal line. I look at him more like a Kittle.
Yeah, he's just going to be out there. He's going to be a every down player. He's going to be out there for goal line situations. He's going to be out there in the red zone. He's going to be out there for pass blocking. He's going to be out there for run schemes. I can see scenarios where they're running screens through him, where if he's, if they're showing a blitz and he's just letting it go, he's hitting, and he's going to be running the screen. If they've got 3 wide somewhere, stacked up on one side, blocking for him. I mean, he's just that guy where I think that they're going to try to get him the ball at minimum 5 times a game just to see what he can do, because I think he can be a playmaker and a difference maker. I think they just want to get a ball in his hands there. Other guys that I like, Jonathan Mingo, I think is going to be an interesting player for Carolina. He's a guy that might be going almost untouched. I talked it earlier. Marvin Mims is a guy, if you already did drafts and you had Jerry Jeudy, I think he's a guy that you can get. People are high on Sky Moore. I think I'd rather take my shot at Rishi Rice and see him as the number 3 potentially on that offense. I think that there's a scenario where he just wins the job over Sky Moore because they're still battling in training camp. There is no definitive outside of Kadarius Toney likely being the number one, even though Travis Kelce is the true number one. That's another scenario like the Ravens. That's another scenario like the Ravens or like the Giants where you're just like, okay, well, who's really the number one receiver? And you're like, well,
yeah.
Like it's wide open.
Well, last week it was
being a wide receiver 76, I mean that's just absolutely worth, especially if you're in a keeper league. It's worth knocking these guys down in your 16th, or some places will do 18 rounds. You know, if you're in an 18 round draft or something like that, it's just worth taking these shots on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, and people are going to differ in who they like late. To me, it's like I don't really want any of the Chiefs because other than it's Kelce,
Right?
Because I think you're going to have an issue like we did last year where it's like, who knows week to week? And Kadarius Toney has not been able to stay healthy in his career at all.
Right.
And so Sky Moore has to prove it to me before I go back to that.
Yeah, give me a couple show me games. It can't just be 1 week. It's got to be. I need consistency before I'm all in as a wide receiver 3, where most leagues you're having 3 wide receivers nowadays.
Yeah, and he's at the luxury of where he doesn't have to be that guy on that team. You know, they got plenty of guys. And Patrick Mahomes proved he can throw it to anybody and still win a Super Bowl. You know, it's like,
yep.
So he doesn't necessarily have that pressure. I do hear good things about him in camp as far as coming along and stuff, but he's got a lot more to prove it to me. I mean, there's guys that I like after that are just priced better. Like to me, like I like the idea of Alec Pierce this year.
I love Alec Pierce.
Deep ball connection.
God, I love him.
I think that's going to be.
I love Alec Pierce so much.
Cole Hodgins is overall 238.
That's wild. It's crazy. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah,
he's a guy that's could be an every down back or an every down receiver.
Yeah, he could be.
There's no like you've got guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling that's ahead of him, and it's like MVS is a one trick pony. He's a home run hitter or nothing. Like how are you? Is it just because of the offense that he's on? I don't know.
I don't get the theory behind these things because you have Jalen Hyatt, who is once again it's the infatuation with the rookies.
Yep.
Almost 100 spots above Isaiah Hodgins.
Isn't that crazy?
I've never seen this guy play before.
Yeah.
I know he's fast, but guess what? I saw him run one route in college. I saw him. It was just go routes, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if you don't, and not that he can't, because like if a dude's talented like that, hopefully you can teach a guy how to run.
It's kind of like what they said about DK Metcalf, and he can't run routes. Turns out he can, but
true. DK Metcalf is also a specimen. Like when you look at his body, like he ate Skittles every day.
Yeah, it's
and like
pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's a massive individual. Like Isaiah Hodgins has one gear and versus like watching DK Metcalf. I didn't go, he can't run routes. Right. I went, they really only have him running like one route. With Jalen Hyatt, like the times I did see him run routes, they weren't good. They weren't crisp.
Yeah.
Other than the go routes. And maybe even a couple hitches here and there. And that had to do a lot with like Tennessee's offense and how they ran their offense. But I'm not saying he can't be a great player one day. But to put Isaiah Hodgins at 238 and him at like 156,
I think it's crazy.
Is nuts to me. I think there's so much value if that's really how
there are certain rankings that like blow my mind. Like I look at like Dalton Schultz sitting as like a top 10 tight end, and it's like, is he? Like I think he was just a product of Dallas having a lot of other really talented guys around him he could get open. Like there are just so many other guys. Like I'd rather have Cole Kmet, who I think has a bigger upside, or some of the rookies that we talked about, even Myers. If you want me to go and pick somebody that really is just going to be in a hell-bent situation, he might be the only guy that's consistently going to be on the field for the Raiders that we know is going to play. Like, but I think
Chigo Okonkwo is
for Tennessee.
Going in a good range. I wouldn't mind that.
Yep. One more question that popped up. With the injury and potential of Terry McLaurin being out for multiple weeks, who do we like the most out of that Redskins offense? I was a big Jahan Dotson fan last year, mm-hmm. Where I actually had him drafted and started him because I think that he is a true game changer and difference maker in some of these. Like I genuinely think that he's so shifty. He kind of reminds me of like Jamal Williams, where if you get him in the open field, you're like, oh shit, something cool's about to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you know somebody's about to get an ankle broken.
He's one of those players that I like having on my team too, because it's like if you like watching your fantasy players, like I'm in so many leagues, I can kind of tune it out.
Right, you're just
and I
watching
enjoy
football.
the games, right?
Yep.
But like, if you want to like cheer for your guys on your fantasy team, pick Jahan Dotson.
Yep.
He is fun to watch. He just is a baller. He loves the game. It looks like he's a really big end zone threat too, which is crazy for his size because he's not overwhelming in stature, but he just finds a way to get in the end zone and make plays. So if you're looking for a fun guy on your fantasy team to watch and to cheer for, you definitely want to pick up Jahan Dotson.
Yep, I like it. Final thoughts? Is there anybody that we didn't touch on that you think is just going to help people be a league winner that is just the deepest sleeper that we have not hit on? I think you kind of opened the door on yours already for the Giants, but
I think if you're gonna wait tight end, I think there's just a lot of like you could just get a couple guys and see if any of them emerge. I think that we're talking about only guys in Tampa. Cade Otton is the only tight end. I mean, I don't think Payne Durham's gonna get a lot of work. Coke just like looks like a lumberjack grizzly bear. Like,
yeah,
he's lumbering kind of big dude.
Yeah.
Their picks at the tight end position have been questionable. I even think guys like Noah Fant kind of like are like underrated in a sense of like at least Noah Fant will steadily give you 9 points on a week.
Yeah, he reminds me of
if
like
he finds the end zone, if he starts to find the end zone a little bit more in this offense, I think that could propel him. But I don't think any of these tight ends in these mid rounds.
Nope.
I don't fall in love with them enough
like
to where
your Gerald Everett's.
I'm gonna find it. I could go with Jake Ferguson, in my last pick for a tight end too.
Yeah.
Like a guy that I had liked out of college, and I thought, if this guy got a shot now that Dalton Schultz is gone. If we're talking about deep sleepers, another guy that I think people are pretty much over, but like I have some shares of him is Clyde Edwards-Helaire late.
Okay. Is it more of just you think he's going to get more volume, or just Pacheco might get injured, or?
I think it's just the Chiefs' offense. They run in a similar sense of like a New England Patriots way, where it could be any back any week.
Right.
And especially guys like Pacheco. If I'm getting Pacheco, I'll double up and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire or McKinnon. It's hard for me to believe that when you have the first round equity that they had in him, and he has actually been the one that's healthy through this training camp, getting plenty of reps with the ones, that he doesn't have a role. So you can get him with your last pick as far as like kind of like a flyer running back.
Yeah.
I wasn't lying when I said I like Deuce Vaughn. I think it's
no. I
think
think Deuce Vaughn carries like Darren Sproles qualities. I mean, they're similar size, stature, absurdly shifty.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a guy very similar to like Curtis Samuel sometimes, where they want to give him the ball a couple times a game just because he can kind of make something happen. Or like your Chase Claypool, where a couple times a game they run a screen to him just because he's fast and they know that he can break out. I think that Deuce Vaughn, especially because I think he's going to be kicking or doing kick returns as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's a guy that definitely does have a lot of really, really, really late upside as well.
Yeah.
I always say it's like, oh, they're so worried about his size. Well, you know what? Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, smaller guys like that have managed to make long careers in the NFL. Devin Hester was an undersized guy and took a ton of hits and played 12 seasons. So does the size really make a difference? Yeah. I don't think so. I think it's all just about how you take care of your body.
And some guys are just different, and like they're like some guys react to hits differently. I mean, look at Tua. Tua's not a small guy, but yet like some guys get hit and it's harder for them to get back up. Some guys get hit all the time, and sometimes big tree fall hard. And the opposite is true with smaller guys. You're lower to the ground. Work done had a well above average lengthy career.
Oh yeah,
as a smaller running back.
God, I love Work done so much.
That's why I have faith that Devin A-Chain too can be good. But Deuce Vaughn is another type of small.
I agree.
And I don't think that's a bad thing for his skill set and the way he plays. I was watching him in it was the Big 12 championship game last year when he was playing for K-State, and he was just electric. Man. The game against TCU, they beat him on. He had like a 53 or 64-yard touchdown run, something like that. Late guys, I'll just throw out some names. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir, I think.
Go Bills.
Has a chance to be in that, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 on that team, in my opinion. I think Matt Collins is kind of being, he's a starter on that team, and I didn't understand the production that Matt Collins has had the past couple years.
I know that you hit Alex Pierce. I've also been in on Josh Downs as well.
Downs, love Josh. I have.
And he's shown. I follow. You probably do too. I follow all of every team basically in the NFL because I like to read what they're writing about, like training camps, and how every team's like, oh, we're looking good and we're real hyped up here and whatever. No. I think the hype for him genuinely is real, and I think he's going to be. If it's not Alex Pierce, it is going to be Josh Downs. One of those two, I think, will emerge, if not both this season.
Yeah.
So.
And I looked at my. I didn't realize until after the last dynasty draft I had. I was like, man, I feel like I drafted a lot of Josh Downs. So I looked at my percentage of. I drafted Josh Downs in almost every single rookie draft.
Well, there he is.
So I love me some Josh.
Well, I hope he hits a home run for you then.
Yeah. Him and Calvin Austin. I think Calvin Austin is another flyer that you want to throw names. And hey, since we're in Tampa, Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins have
Trey
a shot
Palmer,
to
yeah.
be
Absolutely.
number 3.
Yeah, go Bucks. Guys, I appreciate you guys watching. If you are not subscribed, please like and subscribe. The Wager. I'm going to be doing a lot of fantasy content this year. You're going to catch us with a lot of shorts. We have the subscription option now where we're going to be putting exclusive picks of the week behind our paywall. So you're going to get some early picks, but if you want my deep sleepers and guys that are going to win you DFS and your sit starts, make sure that you look at our subscription option behind the paywall. We're hoping to have Bobby on a lot more consistently. And if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and make sure you share these videos. We're going to be putting out a lot of fantasy content for you, and we hope to get a lot of league winners.
Peace.
Doodles.
Thanks for having me, Spence.
Yeah, buddy. End stream.
Just thought of a great